Okay, so imagine like experiencing the divine, not as some like far off concept,
Hmm.
but as real and tangible as like the warmth of the sun.
Hmm.
That's what we're diving into today. The life teachings and surprisingly relevant legacy of St. Gregory Palamas.
You know what makes this deep dive so fascinating is we're not just talking about a historical figure. We're talking about a concept, a way of life that continues to resonate with people, centuries later.
Exactly. And we're exploring an article all about the Sunday of St. Gregory Palamas,
Okay.
a key figure in Orthodox Christianity, particularly during Lent. And here's where it gets really interesting. The article talks about how his ideas on experiencing God are still debated and practiced even today.
Wow.
We'll unpack all of that, and we'll also delve into the mysterious Jesus prayer and why it holds such power for so many.
Yeah, the Sunday dedicated to St. Gregory Palamas falls on the second Sunday of Great Lent.
Okay.
Right after the Sunday of Orthodoxy, it's a pivotal point, in the Lenten journey.
So it's like the church is saying, all right, Lent is getting serious now.
Yes,
Time to reflect on what Palamas taught us. This stuff is important.
precisely. It's a time for spiritual reflection, for deepening our connection with God.
Yeah.
And the placement of this Sunday really emphasizes that.
I love that. So first things first, who was this St. Gregory Palamas,
Right.
for those of us who might not know?
Well, he was a monk, a theologian, and eventually became the Archbishop of Thessalonica.
Okay.
His life was deeply intertwined with Mount Athos,
Yeah.
a center of Orthodox monasticism and the mystical tradition of the Jesus prayer.
Okay, so we've got a monk deep in prayer on a mountain. Sounds like a perfect setting for some profound insights.
Yes.
But then there's this huge debate, right?
Mm.
Can humans really experience God directly? I mean, that's a pretty big question.
Yes, and it was a huge theological debate back in the 14th century.
Uh,
Some argued that God's nature was so fundamentally different from ours that direct communion was impossible.
yeah.
But Palamas argued that through God's uncreated energies,
Okay.
his grace, his actions in the world, we can actually experience his presence.
Hold on, uncreated energies.
Yes.
I think you might need to break that down. For me, it sounds a little, well, mystical.
Think of it like sunlight.
Okay.
The sun itself is too brilliant to look at directly, right?
Right.
But we experience its energy as warmth, as light.
Yeah.
In a similar way, God's essence may be beyond our comprehension, but his uncreated energies are how he reaches us, how we can experience his presence.
Okay, that's a helpful analogy.
Yeah.
So Palamas is saying we can actually feel God's presence.
Yeah.
That's a pretty radical idea, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
His teachings were officially recognized by the Church at the Councils of Constantinople.
Wow.
For those unfamiliar, these councils were major gatherings where bishops came together to discuss and solidify church doctrine.
Right.
This recognition solidified Palamas's ideas as a core part of Orthodox thought.
So this wasn't just some fringe idea. It became a fundamental part of Orthodox Christianity.
Exactly, and that's why dedicating a Sunday to him, especially during Lent, is so significant.
Yeah, it's like a reminder right in the middle of our Lenten journey
Yes.
to focus on this possibility of a deep personal connection with God.
Precisely. And that brings us to this idea of theosis,
Okay.
which is central to Palamas's teachings.
Okay. Theosis. Remind us what that means again.
Theosis is the belief that humans can actually participate in the divine nature through God's grace.
Okay.
And Palamas believed this wasn't just some abstract concept, it was a goal, something attainable for everyone.
But wait, participating in the divine nature, that sounds a bit, well, overwhelming.
Right.
How do we even begin to grasp that? Did Palamas offer any practical steps, anything we can actually do?
He did, and what's fascinating is that his ideas are deeply rooted in Scripture.
Okay.
In fact, the readings for the Sunday of St. Gregory Palamas shed light on this.
Okay.
For example, Hebrews 1.2.3 emphasizes the urgency of seeking salvation,
Okay.
urging us not to drift away from God.
So it's about actively pursuing a relationship with God, not just passively believing.
Exactly. And then there's the story of the paralytic in Mark 2.1:12. Remember, his friends lower him through a roof to reach Jesus.
Oh yeah, that's a powerful image. Their determination is incredible. But how does that story connect to theosis?
Think of it this way. The friends' actions, their faith and effort,
Yeah.
helped the paralytic reach Jesus. Similarly, our efforts, our prayers, our striving for a connection with God supported by our community can help us on the path to theosis.
So it's not just about individual effort, it's about supporting each other's spiritual growth. helping each other along this journey.
Yes, we need that support, that shared journey to truly reach our potential. Now we've been talking about experiencing God's presence.
Right.
And this is where Palamas's idea of the uncreated light comes in.
Okay, the uncreated light. Remind me, what exactly was that?
The uncreated light is described as the divine light witnessed by the disciples during Christ's transfiguration on Mount Tabor.
Okay.
Palamas believed that this wasn't just a metaphor, but a tangible reality that we too can experience.
So how does this idea of uncreated light connect to what we can experience? Is it something we could just see?
It's not necessarily about physical sight.
Okay.
Palamas taught that through prayer, fasting, and participating in the sacraments, we can open ourselves to experiencing this divine light within us. It's about cultivating an inner awareness, a receptivity to God's presence.
So it's less about seeing a physical light and more about perceiving God's presence in a deeper way.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond the purely intellectual and into a realm of direct experience. And this is where the Jesus prayer becomes so important.
Okay, so let's talk about the Jesus prayer.
Yes.
It seems so simple, just words. How can something so seemingly basic be so powerful?
But you see, it's not just about reciting words. It's about the intention, the focus, the transformation that happens within us when we truly engage with the prayer.
I can see how that would be powerful, but I'm still a little skeptical.
Sure.
How can something so simple really lead to such a profound experience? It feels almost too easy.
Well, remember St. Paul's words to the Thessalonians, pray without ceasing. The Jesus prayer practiced correctly allows for a constant connection with God. It becomes a rhythm woven into the fabric of your life.
A rhythm of prayer.
Yeah.
I like that, but let's be honest, in today's world, with its constant distractions, how can we actually make that happen?
It's a challenge, no doubt, but that's also what makes the Jesus prayer so relevant.
Right.
It's a practice anyone can use anytime, anywhere.
Right.
To stay grounded in their faith. You don't need a special place or ritual, just a sincere heart and a willingness to connect with God. You know?
Yeah, so it's like having this ongoing conversation with God, like throughout the day, even in the middle of all the busyness.
Precisely. And the beauty is it can be as simple as, silently repeating the prayer while you're driving, washing dishes, or even standing in line at the grocery store. It's about cultivating that inner space where you can connect with the divine.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how this could actually be really practical, even for someone like me who's always on the go.
Exactly. And remember, we're not alone in this. The Sunday of St. Gregory Palamas reminds us of the importance of community. We can support each other, learn from each other's experiences, and grow together in our faith.
Yeah, it's a good point. Sometimes it feels like faith is this solo journey, but it's really not. We need each other.
We absolutely do. And the church gives us tools to help us along the way. Speaking of which, have you ever noticed how beautifully the hymns for the Sunday of St. Gregory Palamas capture the essence of his teachings?
Yeah, like they take these complex theological ideas and make them accessible through poetry and music. Do we have the actual texts in our notes? I'd love to hear them again.
We do the Troparion, which is a shorter hymn of praise. Says, O light of orthodoxy, teacher of the church, its confirmation always intercede before the Lord, that our souls may be saved.
It's acknowledging Palamas as this guiding light, this teacher, who helps us see the path to salvation more clearly, right?
Exactly. And then there's the Kontakion, a longer, more poetic hymn. It says, now is the time for action. Judgment is at the door, so let us rise and fast, offering alms with tears of compunction.
Wow, that one has a completely different energy, much more intense, like a call to action.
It reminds us that faith isn't passive. We need to actively participate in our spiritual growth through prayer, fasting, repentance, and acts of charity.
Yeah, it's like it's saying, don't just sit there thinking about it. Do something. Put your faith into action, but it's not coming from a place of fear or judgment.
Right.
Right? It's more about the urgency of taking advantage of this opportunity for transformation.
It's about recognizing the power of God's grace to change us and responding with a sincere desire to draw closer to him.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
We've talked about St. Gregory Palamas, his ideas about experiencing God directly, this concept of theosis, the power of the Jesus prayer, even the hymns for his Sunday. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but it all fits together so beautifully, like pieces of a puzzle revealing a bigger picture.
But here's the question that keeps coming back to me. Why should we modern listeners care about a 14th century monk? What does all this have to do with our lives today?
Yeah. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And here's what I think St. Gregory Palamas' teachings remind us: that God is accessible, that prayer can truly transform us, and that theosis, this journey toward participating in the divine, is a goal we can all strive for.
You know, in our busy often chaotic world, it's easy to lose sight of those truths. We get caught up in the day-to-day and forget about those deeper longings.
Exactly. And even if the idea of experiencing God directly sounds a bit far-fetched, the Sunday of St. Gregory Palamas encourages us to be open to that possibility. It's a reminder that we're all capable of spiritual growth no matter where we are in our journey.
It's like a permission slip to explore spirituality, to see what's possible.
I love that permission slip because really that's what this is all about, giving ourselves permission to seek a deeper connection with the divine, to embrace the transformative power of faith.
So it's not about having all the answers. It's about being open to the journey and seeing where it leads.
And that journey, as we've been discussing, is rooted in practice prayer fasting, engaging with the sacraments, cultivating that inner awareness through the Jesus prayer. These are all tools we can use to cultivate a deeper connection with God.
So it's not just about believing in God. It's about actively seeking that relationship, that experience of the divine.
Right.
Even if we don't fully understand what that means yet.
Exactly. And that's where the Sunday of St. Gregory Palamas can be so inspiring. It's a reminder that this journey is possible, that transformation is possible, that we can, in a sense, become partakers in that divine light.
And that's a pretty amazing thought to carry with us, especially during Lent, this time of reflection and renewal. It gives Lent a whole new dimension, doesn't it?
It does. It's a reminder that even amidst the challenges and distractions of life, we can always turn inward, seek that connection, and find solace and strength in our faith.
It's interesting because even me, as someone who's maybe a little hesitant about the whole experiencing God directly thing, I'm finding myself like drawn to these ideas.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what if it really is possible?
And that's the beauty of St. Gregory Palamas' legacy. It's not about forcing a specific belief or experience on anyone. It's about opening up a pathway, a possibility for a deeper connection, however that might look for each individual.
I love that, a pathway to deeper connection.
Yeah.
It's not about having all the answers up front, but about being willing to embark on the journey to explore, to see what unfolds.
Exactly. And as we've been discussing, this journey is rooted in practice, prayer fasting, engaging with the sacraments, cultivating that inner awareness through the Jesus prayer. These are all tools we can use to deepen our connection with God.
So it's not about just passively believing. It's about actively seeking that relationship, that experience of the divine. It's about taking those small steps day by day to open ourselves up to that possibility.
And that's where the Sunday of St. Gregory Palamas can be so inspiring, especially during Lent. It's a reminder that this journey of transformation is possible, that we can, in a sense, become partakers in that divine light.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a question. If you could experience the divine as vividly as you experience the warmth of the sun, would you seek it out?
That's a powerful question, and one that invites each of us to look inward to examine our own hearts.
What steps might you take to cultivate that kind of connection in your own life? Perhaps try incorporating the Jesus prayer into your daily routine this week. See how it feels to weave those words, that intention, into the fabric of your day. Or maybe explore some of St. Gregory Palamas' writings. Dive deeper into his teachings.
Yeah, the path is there for those who seek it. All it takes is a willingness to take that first step.
This has been a truly enlightening deep dive. I hope you feel inspired to explore these ideas further and see where your own spiritual journey leads.
May your path be filled with light and grace.
And until next time, keep diving deep.